Yes, it worked. Hello, hi Vanessa. Welcome to Q&A. Hi Anna. Oh, here we go. Second live of the day coming at ya. Angelina, nice to see you. Monica. Oh, see, it's just like book club all over again. Hi Dee. Monica, we've been missing you. Good morning again. Do you want to know what I did in the last hour? I played Ticket to Ride because I'm obsessed. It's so good. It's such a fun game. Nice to see everyone. I also convinced Jessica, you'll happy to know, to buy a sub pump. Vanessa, where are you again? Hi, Shyla. So welcome. Welcome to Q&A for 5 more minute home learning edition. Not a big crowd today, but a valuable crowd. Winnipeg, that's right. So, we are, I know, totally quick. So today, we are meeting for just like a little bit, a few minutes or so, to review some questions that came up around our last 5 more minute video learning edition. And the construction outside has decided to be loud and interrupt us, so excuse me while I close the window. Who is doing that on a Saturday? Hold on.
I think it's a piano teacher.
No problem. And the window is closed. Jessica, you want to come say hi since you're in the background? Everyone, this is Jessica. This is my wife. Okay, so a few updates for you. Number 1, this week there was no 5 more minute video because Shelly is trying to write her dissertation. Shyla, are you guys doing Reynolds right now? Yeah, so Shelly has focused on the last week writing her dissertation draft and had a big deadline, so she appreciates your flexibility. Hi, Jessica, Shyla says.
Hi.
Appreciates your flexibility, but you're going to get the same amount of videos no matter what. So if I don't have one this week, then you'll just get another one later. Hey, Nicole. We're just doing our Q&A for our 5 more minute home learning edition. So there's that. And then last Saturday, we missed the Q&A. So, again, because of all the writing. So I just want to apologize for that. Vanessa. Okay, yes. So Vanessa has a question. This is really, really good. So I have a couple of questions that came in through email. But Vanessa, why don't you start while you're typing your question? I will just talk about maybe some of the questions that came in. So Vanessa, you type. One question that came in was, oh my goodness, okay, was it Intelligent Lives, Nicole? So the first question that came in was, because the last video we were doing a series on literacy and reading, and how we could do interactive reading at home, and but one of the questions that came up was actually connected to the previous visual, which was countdown strips, around, is it better to count up or is it better to count down? Okay, and so in my opinion, I think it's better to count down because it's a countdown strip, and so you're trying to get down to 0. So it's like 5 minutes left. So it's 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So that was kind of a quick one. And then the second video, or the second question that I got, was about challenging behavior. And so the question was, what do you do if a student or your child or whoever that you're working with is having really challenging behaviors as you can't get to the visual supports? And so my response to that is, here's the thing about challenging behavior. If a kid is having challenging behavior, it's because it's the best option for them at that time, and so something else is going on. And often, I know when I started working with my little guys, is that often the part that really helped me was you have to teach the strategies when kids are not having a hard time. Okay, because if kids are having behaviors that are difficult, and then we're trying to introduce to them those visuals or those supports, it's not gonna stick, right? And so, if kids are if you're trying to introduce the kids to the visuals and they just keep pushing back, try and find a time when they're really, really, really calm. Make it really, really a motivating thing to use, like trying the transition strips and the visuals, for example, when they're doing an activity that they're really, really liked, right? Oh, Vanessa, this is a good question. Okay, this is a good question. And so that's going to be my best advice. But if a kid is really, really pushing back, then try a different strategy, right? Try a different strategy. This isn't about forcing kids. And if they're communicating that behavior, they're saying something's not working. Okay, so Vanessa has a really good question. Because remember, I said, let's not use, we have to be really cautious about appropriate age books. So Vanessa says, I'm struggling with the issue around, quote, no 17-year-old should be choosing books talking about bunnies. Yeah, we use Piggy and Gerald books to teach so many good morals, and our kids just love them. And then you said interest trumps levels. Yes, Vanessa, good catch, good check. So what I meant by that is that a lot of times kids who are 17 are only exposed to the talking bunnies. Okay, if we are exposing kids who are 17, exposing them to age-appropriate things all the time, but they still want to read Piggy and Gerald books, by all means. But let's just first of all say Piggy and Gerald are good for all ages. Do you know, the morals in there? That's the other thing is that picture books aren't necessarily not in age appropriate. It's what I'm talking about are the ones that are they're baby, the baby bunny books, the board books for babies. Do you know what I mean? There are many picture books that are age appropriate for everybody, right? Especially books that have really age appropriate lessons and morals in them. Those are fantastic, right? Piggy and Gerald are great books about that. Those are for kids, but they're also for adults. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about I had an example of a kid, for example, who came in 17 years old and loved Blue's Clues. Blue's Clues is not for adults. Blue's Clues are for kids under 4, maybe 5, right? And so there's a difference between, it doesn't necessarily mean picture books, but at the end of the day, if I have a 17-year-old who, after being exposed to still age-appropriate things, just loves Blue's Clues, I'm going to let him still use Blue's Clues. I guess the point that I'm trying to make is that the problem is often when people are making those decisions for kids. So, for example, someone says, oh, they're 17, but they can only understand Blue's Clues, therefore, I'm only going to expose them to Blue's Clues, right? It's more about the mentality. It's infantilizing, right? Which is a lot of what happens. Yeah. So if a student, for example, in high school loves Paw Patrol, that tells me, right? That tells me one of two things. I would ask myself, well, do they like Paw Patrol because they like Paw Patrol? Or do they like Paw Patrol because that's all they've been exposed to, right? And so this is a really, really important question that sometimes you can't tell just by looking, which I can understand how that would have come across in the other video, but really being okay, so have we exposed kids to age-appropriate topics and concepts and ideas, or are they loving those younger topics and ideas because that's all they have access to, because people think that's all they can do, right? And so it's really back and forth. But if we are exposing kids to all the things and they still love Paw Patrol, I'm gonna let them still, of course, use Paw Patrol, but it's balancing it. So Vanessa, we have a whole bookshelf of books of all different levels, and 80% of the time they search for the Piggy and Gerald books. If that's the case, Vanessa, then go with the Piggy and Gerald. And I think that's a really good point, because even if they're being connected to books, and I don't even want to say that Piggy and Gerald are inappropriate age, because they have huge big ideas in them. Those types of books are all ages, but I think that if a student does love Paw Patrol, for example, to look for age-appropriate concepts within the book. Okay, so things like that, and a lot of those cartoons and a lot of those characters do have that, but a lot of them also don't, right? And this is the other thing too, is that if kids are only looking at Paw Patrol, peers are not going to interact with them around Paw Patrol, right? Yeah, but it could be the racing cars, it could be many things, and so I think I'm not going to make the decision for someone to stop liking Paw Patrol. That's not my role. But what I do want to do is I'm going to take that and be okay, so is there a way to bring in other things connected to maybe the ideas in Paw Patrol that are more age appropriate, and allow that individual to choose? Because if it's racing cars, I could look at Paw Patrol and be you know what, racing cars might be more appropriate. I'm not going to take Paw Patrol away. I'm going to expose them to more things, and if they keep choosing Paw Patrol, it's not up to me to decide that, but it is up to me to make sure that the repertoire is big enough, right? Totally. Vanessa, I'm really glad you brought that up because that was a really good, people have said that to me before. They're like, yeah, but Shelley, but what you said is different than what I've heard before, which is, yeah, but Shelley, what if that's all they are able to understand? Which is what I have a problem with, not, well, what if they just love Paw Patrol? Like, do you see the difference there? One of them presumes competence and the other one doesn't, right? So how you're presenting it is telling me not that that's all they can handle. You're telling it because they're actually choosing it because they like it, which is a totally different scenario. And so in the video, I was saying we can't only allow kids to be interacting with inappropriately aged books because we think that's all they can handle. That's what the problem is. Nicole says, because it seemed like it would be a good exposure to the topic content in a format that was comprehensible and engaging for that student, who then made his own book about Vikings. You know what's really interesting, Nicole, is Vikings was really, when I was working with my little guy, I was trying to get him to like something other than the Wiggles. I didn't take the Wiggles away. I was like, Wiggles, there's not a lot in the Wiggles. So, we use the what makes the Wiggles interactive. We just kind of applied that to Vikings, and then he loved the Vikings, right? Like, it's thinking about how do you take the content, age appropriate. We talked about this before. How do you take age appropriate content and developmentally appropriate processes and put them together, right? So, like, why do people love Paw Patrol? Why do people love Piggy and Gerald? Because they're hilarious, right? So, but I think Piggy and Gerald is actually a really good. I think that's a great book. Oh, the Wiggles, right? Because Vikings are like pirates. They're like interesting. The Vikings are interesting. No, for sure. No, thanks for asking that, Vanessa. That was a really good question. Yeah, no, I love that. Like you guys. Okay, so the other thing that I wanted to tell you that kind of connects both to visuals and to the literacy piece is that one thing that I was trying to kind of like embed within the last video was the importance of keeping individuals with disabilities engaged in current events. And so one thing that's really happening in the world right now that's really important is engaging around anti-racism work. And so this is an example of content that a lot of people might say, oh, well, that's inaccessible to people with disability, or they won't be able to understand that. Oh no, what happened? Oh no, what did I do? Oh, there we go, sorry. And so I posted some resources on the Facebook page that just said, hey, you know what I mean? Like, we need to make sure that these big, important world events are being understood by all people. And so I posted some resources on my website that was shared by the Thinking Person's Guide to Autism that has some plain language and picture stories around George Floyd and anti-racism. But then the other thing I realized is that I was reading from the Thinking Person's Guide to Autism, which is a great Facebook page, by the way, that we also, if we're going to share this information, we also have to give opportunities for kids to express their thinking and their feeling. Like, we're all of us are going through all these emotions right now. Like, we need to process them and be able to express them. And so there was another post. If you go into the 5 More Minute Facebook page, there's 2 links. One for how do we communicate information and literacy and text around world events, but also how do we then allow individuals. It's called the Thinking Person's Guide to Autism. I'll type it in here. I'll type it in. The Thinking Person's Guide to Autism. Great Facebook page, and they've been posting some great resources exactly about these things, about how do we make sure information that's provided is accessible, right? Which is, I think it's like it's content at developmentally appropriate levels, right? So it's plain language, it's visuals, it's really simple text, right? So that everyone can understand it. But then the other one, which I really love, was how do we then support people to express their thinking and their feeling around these really like sensitive and emotion evoking topics, right? Because everyone has a right to be able to engage with this, but also people are going to have to express. And so, you know, what we learned at book club is like without the opportunity to kind of process some of these big ideas, it gets really overwhelming. And so we also want to make sure that we're facilitating that conversation. So there's 2 links there. I will repost them. I'll put them in my stories. Because those are good places to start. And then if you use some of the strategies we've been talking about around like the comment, ask, response one that we talked about in the last video, you can engage someone, I think, really authentically in some of these these really important conversations that are happening right now. I saw a stat the other day that said, over half of the people who are arrested, Black people who are arrested in America, have disabilities, right? So there's a lot of intersection here in terms of having a role as educators and as parents to educate the people around us about the important things that are happening in the world right now. And so there's some really great resources out there so that we can keep people engaged, especially who have disabilities, because this does directly affect them. Woo! So I'll post those two articles again, because they had some really good resources in there that I think would be really useful. Okay, Nicole, you wanted to talk about Intelligent Lives? Okay, if you don't know about Intelligent Lives, so Dan Habib is a filmmaker. I had the opportunity to meet him once. He's phenomenal. He has a TED Talk called, I'm going to type it in here, Disabling Segregation. It's my favorite TED Talk ever. I just love it so much. Hi, Tanya from Prince Rupert. Oh, Vanessa, you've also inspired me to take some of the students' favorite books off our bookshelf and create storyboards for those books. Oh, that's so cool. Yeah, some ways to interact with those books. I love that. Hey, Andy. So, because that interaction, right, it's more than just, like, the decoding, but, like, how do we interact with the ideas? And Piggy and Gerald would be great for that, because there are huge ideas in those books. Totally. Okay, so Dan Habib is a filmmaker. He's also a parent. Okay, so Nicole says, I'm curious to know more about it, what you think of it, and whether you think we should thoughtfully use it for Teacher Pro D and for high school student. Yes. The TED Talk is called Disabling Segregation, okay? And Dan Habib is a phenomenal guy. Nicole, he's a filmmaker and a parent. And he has a couple of documentaries. Intelligence Live is his most recent one, but he also has Educating Samuel, Disabling Segregation. And if you go in the comments, I've typed it, Disabling Segregation. And it's the journey of his son, who has disabilities, going through school. And so he talks about kind of his inclusion journey and how hard it was. And then his newest documentary there's another one actually, there's a second one, I forget the name. But the Including Samuel is one, yeah. Do you remember what the other one is, Shyla? Oh, what is it? Ooh, it's so good. And then this newest one is Intelligent Lives, which is just, it's so good. I saw a screening of it in Victoria. Who cares about Kelsey? Thank you, Shyla. So those three. There's Including Samuel, Who Cares About Kelsey, and now Intelligent Lives. And I think it is a really incredible resource. Intelligent Lives, his son worked with him on that, so it's also a very authentic video. I also like that it looks at kind of the range of student. I know, he's phenomenal, isn't he, Shyla? I would absolutely use that video in Pro D. I think that they have some really great screening events with Intelligent Lives that I think would be really powerful for a Teacher Pro D to be like, okay, let's have a screening, right? And then maybe a really facilitated and thoughtful discussion around it. I'm a huge fan of Dan Habib's work, 100%. He's so great. Yeah. Oh my goodness, and then you could like follow that up with Crip Camp. Oh, there's so many good resources out there just to help people understand that idea of disability as identity. Oh, it's so good. So good. So yes, Nicole. Good find. Very good find. And if you ever have the chance to see Dan Habib, I think we do better with respect to inclusive post-secondary in Alberta. Oh, you absolutely do. I spoke at the U of C, and they had Nicole, it's a great idea. And they have a whole program for kids with disabilities, well, young adults with disabilities to be a part of courses. I would love, oh my goodness, if I had another one of me, like I think it'd be such a cool project because right now a lot of kids audit classes, but actually to like design university courses so that kids have access to the curriculum and are evaluated in really authentic ways. Like, that's like a 10-year dream for me because it's so possible. Because we're doing it in high school, right? So, I mean, the next step would be post-secondary. Nicole says, I'm thinking of maybe asking our team to include that in our summer pro-Ds about blended learning. Yeah, totally. Especially, like, going back to school now around the stuff that's been happening right now. I want to do an anti-racism focus next year in Socials 9, and the idea of personal revolution and reconciling identity and self. Oh, that's huge. It's, first PhD, then fill in the blank. Yeah, totally. Nicole, I think it'd be so good because I think the part that's really missing in a lot of the units around identity and diversity is that they very often lack a disability perspective, right? And so there's a lot of talk around, like, diversity in terms of culture, race, language, right? But it's often disability is not seen as an identity, it's seen as a deficit, right? And so really changing that narrative would be really powerful with your kids. I love that idea. First PhD, then clone. I don't think my wife could handle more than one of me. I'm going to be real honest with you. You guys are so fun. I love you. Oh, okay. Any lingering questions? I will let you know that there will be videos this week. We are going to, one for sure, and we will, intersection. And I'm learning through this anti-racism work that the intersection between disability and race is way bigger than I thought, right? And so this work is so connected. It's so connected, and so I appreciate that you are seeing that. All right. There's going to be a video this week. Aiming for Tuesday. I've gotten a good chunk of, I wrote 100 pages this week, you guys. Like, I have carpal tunnel. That's how you know you've been working hard. So I'll have a new video today. It's going to be another interactive reading strategy. And then we're going to just keep going. But you know what? We're going to have so many more videos. I've got so many ideas. And so it's going to be so good. But it's just keeping us connected. Even if they go into the summer, it's going to keep us connected. Oh, Monica, I'm so helpful. Monica says, your home edition videos have been such good professional development. Okay, good. That's so good. Thank you, Wendy. It's Wendy. Influence. Leadership is influence. These conversations. You are the clones. Absolutely, Andy. Thank you for sharing your passion because your passion are my passions. That's why we get along. There are stretches that reduce carpal tunnel. Have you been talking to my wife? Every time I say that, she's like, you could stretch. Wrist therapy videos from YouTube. Okay, I'm on it. See, Wendy, I knew. I'm like, that's Wendy. I remember Wendy. Because you're so good at introducing yourself. Everyone has such fun Instagram names like Heartstar, $1999. And Wendy's is Ecole Dieppe counselor. And every day she's like, hi, it's Wendy. Hi, it's Wendy. And I'm like, I know it's you. Oh, Nicole, you have the same problem, right? Like this. Stretch videos from YouTube. I wonder if Yoga with Adrian has stretching videos. Oh, you guys are fun. Well, thanks everybody for joining me for Q&A. We will be back again. Oh, Andy, interpreter for deaf use, hand stretches. But what you're doing is not it. Good to know, Andy. Good to know. Oh, you're so good. So we'll be back. Come back next Saturday, 11 o'clock. We'll have another Q&A. Up and down, not round and round. Okay. Oh, yeah, that feels good. You guys are so supportive. Oh, well, thanks for joining, everyone. You're fantastic. Go enjoy the rest of your Saturday. Vanessa, I can't thank you enough because sometimes I'll try and anticipate questions and then I forget. So I'm really glad you brought that up because that was a really good question that I know a lot of people think. But it sounds like you're right on track, that we're aligned in terms of how to use those texts in appropriate ways. You're the best. Let's all go read some Peggy and Gerald. They're fantastic books. Okay, you guys, have a really great day. You're amazing. I will see you soon. Mwah.